Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. I just want to introduce you to Conor McManus from Eaton Square, who will be delivering a webinar on the modern finance function, how automation is redefining roles and results. Over to you, Conor.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. Good morning, everyone. And a big thank you for you all joining today's Chartered Accountants Ireland's webinar. Exactly what Anastasia is saying. The topic is around modern finance function, how automation is redefining roles and results. Now, this is important. It's not about theory. It's about what's really happening inside finance teams right now and how automation is really changing both the work we do and the impact we have. My goal today is very simple, to leave you with new ways of thinking about the finance role, some practical steps you can take straight away. So the modern finance function isn't evolving, it's being rewritten. Now, before we dive into the content, let's run over some quick housekeeping so you know how today's session will run. Okay, so first of all, my name is Conor McManus and I lead the finance transformation delivery at Eaton Square. More on that in a minute. And before we get started, just a little bit about housekeeping, just kind of general rules. We're on for about 45 minutes. This includes about 5 to 7 minutes, very exact, at the end for Q&A. Those questions not answered will follow up later when the email goes out with the link to the video and the deck. And I'll review them and come back and answer all of them individually. We'll also run a quick live polls through the session, so please take part. It makes the conversation richer. And finally, the slides recording will be shared, as I said, to those who get right through to the end. So this is going to be very straightforward and focused. We'll cover a lot in 45 minutes and wrap up with your questions at the end. This is not a simple session around, what's happening. It's a wake-up call, so it's not a checklist. It's an actual wake-up call, what's happening in the real world and what you can do to arm yourself. So now that's the housekeeping done. Let's give you a quick introduction to myself and the work I lead. So I suppose I've been in the world of tech for about 25 years in various guises. I'm part of basically lead out the finance transformation technology consulting in Eaton Square. Eaton Square is part of a global HR pack group. It's about 2,500 technologists and consultants in 25 countries. That gives us global scale and the ability to really bring kind of experience in many different industries and geographies. Within that, we operate across several practices, HCM, Microsoft, management consulting, and also talent recruitment. That breadth and knowledge allows us kind of deep expertise when our clients need it. But the practice I lead, finance transformation technology consulting, is one of the largest and fastest growing practices in Eaton Square. And we've delivered 100 plus finance projects across the UK and Ireland in the last few years. And our focus is really around helping CFOs and finance teams modernize their finance functions through automation and platforms, for example, like Sage Intacct. And it's not just about the efficiency, it's about really redefining what those roles are. Finance teams are moving from transactional work to more strategic, more value-driving roles. And that's exactly what today's webinar is about. How automation is reshaping the modern finance function, redefining not only the roles we play, but also the results we deliver. So our my finance transformation service line is one of the biggest engines here. We're seeing real traction going on in the marketplace. I suppose if you were to look back over the last few years, first was the advent of CRM, customer relationship management solutions, then a big push on HR, and finally finance is getting a look in from a transformation perspective. And with that perspective, let's get into why the finance function itself changes so dramatically. So let me start with a bold statement. The finance role, as we know it, is ending, right? Shock and awe. The next decade will define what finance really means, not just the results we deliver, but the relevance of our role. We already see it in the big four and what they're doing with the new graduates coming into their businesses. They're moving more towards managerial roles rather than the transactional roles. They're looking at the technology to help with the transactional stuff. So today is not really around a product demo or a software pitch. It's just, around what's actually happening out there, the truth that the role you train for is not the role you retire in. And the shifts are happening faster than most people realize. And you will see that we'll have teenagers at home and they're all on ChatGPT doing their homework, etc. Think about 15 years ago, finance was about spreadsheets, closing the books, compliance. Now CFOs are really expected to lead strategy, advise the board, understand ESG, data science, compliance, and sometimes AI. Actually, I met a CFO recently who joked, I train as an accountant, but now I feel like a data scientist with a side hustle in people management. That's the shift. So the next decade won't just tweak our roles, it will redefine them. So the role you train for isn't the role you retire in. Let that hit home. And the biggest driver of that change is automation. Interesting stat I came across the other day. McKinsey says 50% of financial planning analysis tasks can be automated today. That's half the work. If half your job disappeared tomorrow, what would be left? What would you do? Would anyone notice? Or would the business breathe a sigh of relief and say, finally, finance is caught up? The point isn't a threat, it's an opportunity. Automation isn't here to take jobs, it's here to take tasks. The repetitive ones, the boring ones, the mundane ones that really hold us back. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Instead of freeing ourselves, most finance teams are still stuck reporting the past. We're still doing the same thing we did 10 years ago. So if half the finance work is automated, well, half your job could go tomorrow. So think about that. Advent of AI, automation, etc., especially AI at the moment, it's really pushing people around for productivity, etc. And I'll come to that later on. But the real question is, are we shaping the future or just reporting the past? 70% of typical finance teams' time is spent reporting what already happened, only 30% on shaping the future. So let that sit in there for a second. So 70% of a typical finance team is spent reporting what's already happened. So you're reporting it's already been done. You're reporting how you got on last month, last quarter, etc. And people aren't getting the time to focus on forecasting the future and steering the business towards possible roadblocks, etc. So I asked one CFO last month what percentage of her board pack is forward-looking. Her answer is less than 10%. So I worked with a client a few years ago, and all he wanted to see was, show me the errors, show me the problems. I don't want to see how good we are. I want to see where we can do better. That's the problem. We're historians when we should be navigators. So let me ask you, in your last board meeting, how much time was spent actually looking at the quarter versus next quarter? How much are you looking forward rather than looking back? And really, I suppose, and again, just echoing what the piece around historians, boards don't need historians, they need navigators, people who are punching above their weight insofar as looking at where the business is going rather than looking back where the business has come from. And yet most of us are still stuck because of one thing, our addiction to spreadsheets. Now, spreadsheets have a place. I think it's 30-year anniversary this year for Excel. It's not going away and never will go away, and I understand why people use it. But recent surveys show that Excel remains pervasive in finance. In 2005, at the end of a report, reported that 89% of finance teams still rely on Excel, not just doing the day-to-day stuff, but actually running their businesses on it. Even when other planning tools or systems are brought in, they still extract the information out, put it into Excel and slice and dice it. Modern finance systems like the likes of Sage Intacct that we implement move past that and allow you to have all the information you need at fingertips in the systems themselves. So yes, you can still export out to Excel, etc., but all the work is done within the system. So again, you're trying to create one version of the truth. So if you think about it, if you pitch to a venture capitalist today and said our finance backbone is Excel, would you get funding? Of course not. But many finance teams live like that every day. I work with a client who discovered a 2 million error that came from one broken Excel formula in a consolidation workbook. 2 million gone just because of a typo. Spreadsheets aren't the future of finance, they're a liability, which is kind of seemed a little bit hard. But I think with all the pressure on the finance roles from a compliance reporting perspective, they are a weak link. They do have their place, but they still are a weak link. And we still cling to them. I said the tsunami of change is already crashing in around us with all these changes. So Excel isn't a system, it's a liability. Again, it's there to support you, but it isn't a system. And while we cling to spreadsheets, three much bigger forces are crashing in. And no one will be surprised to see these two raising their head. So three forces reshaping finance at the same time. Regulation. So we see it day in, day out with our clients. They're getting hit with regulations across the board. Either it's from the not-for-profits and SORP that's coming through from the UK with our UK clients, but a lot of not-for-profits now are more and more using as their regulatory. And also, if you look at technology, the advent of AI, it's everywhere. There's no escaping it. People moving to the cloud, huge move from on-premise software to the cloud-based software during COVID. Also from a security perspective, IT people love it because it's essentially somebody else's problem. It's sitting on an Amazon server somewhere, or Microsoft Azure server somewhere. It's got gold standard data security, data encryption, etc. around it, plus GDPR. And then you have software as a service model already coming in as well. So gone are the days when you big ERP solutions that are trying to encompass everything across the business. Now you have finance management systems tailored just for your finance function that integrates with other systems, which is CRM like a Salesforce, with planning systems, with project management systems, with contract systems, etc. So you're not beholden to one software provider. You actually have spread the risk across many. And you get all the benefits of subscription-based modeling with updated products coming at you. That doesn't mean you have to downtime your system or your people. It happens overnight. And you get the best of new product releases as well coming through from those SaaS providers. The last one then really is around investors and board. They're really demanding sharper insights. So we kind of touched on it earlier there around the board packs and what people want. And we're seeing more and more boards now looking for, show me the issues, don't show me the great stuff, They want to, of course, operationally see what's happening in the businesses, but they also want to see a keen insight then on where the business is going from a strategic perspective. Again, a lot of the companies that we've worked with have business strategies, and part of that is the finance backbone to actually lead out those strategies from a revenue collection perspective, but also a revenue generation perspective as well. And I'll come to the point later on about finance being seen as a cost center rather than a value add, and I'll explain a little bit further around that later on. The other thing then really is around, the tsunami of change, as I was saying, you can't be standing at the beach holding your spreadsheet. There's other stuff coming at you. And nowhere is the hype and the confusion bigger than AI. Now, this is a busy enough slide. I won't get too much into the graphic on the right, but it is a J curve. People might be aware of it. Kind of use it to cover a lot of different things, but it really is around kind of productivity. And what I'm trying to show you here is when the advent of new technology or new things happen, it kind of goes through its current state and then a bit of a dip before productivity kicks in. But the stat that really gets everyone's attention here is 95% of enterprise AI projects to date have delivered no return on investment. That's 95%. So we're all busy running around looking at ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude and Gemini, etc. But actually, people don't know where to start or what to do with. At first glance, it looks like a failure, but actually, it's a familiar pattern for those who are old and long in the tooth like myself. We saw the same thing with computers in the 1980s, and again with the internet in the 1990s. In the early years, there's disruption, not productivity. ROI only comes when organizations redesign processes, not when they simply bolt new tools on to old ways of working. So that's very important, that we don't just bring in the new shiny stuff and not change what we're currently doing. It's about reflecting on how we are currently working and is it the best way of working. And that's what a lot of we do on a day-to-day basis, is go into businesses and look into, maybe in an approval process, etc. And is it the best way to do it from an industry perspective? Are the checks and balances in places, are roles and responsibilities and segregation duties, is it compliant? And then we look at the technology and how to mirror that in the technology environment to remove those errors and risks. And that's what the J curve, shows us here. The initial dip reflects the confusion and inefficiency that comes with change. Only when the businesses rethink workflows do they climb out of that dip and reach the gains. And this isn't just about AI, it's the same with automation and finance also. If you want the real productivity uplift, you don't just automate the spreadsheet, you redesign the process. So again, you just don't automate what you have already, you redesign with the process that you have. Technology alone doesn't create productivity, process redesign does. So if 95% of projects don't show return on investment, why are companies still investing billions? The problem isn't just the curve, it's where the money is going. And that brings us to investment mismatch. I threw the slide in just to kind of give you all a feel for where the investment currently is going in organizations, and not to feel disheartened. And I essentially give you some ammunition to go back to the boards and stuff to say why you need it as well. So here's the main issue. The budgets are flowing into the wrong places. We see it day in, day out, sales and marketing, operations, etc. get all the love. So over 70% we notice of AI and automation spend today goes into sales and marketing. Things like outbound emails, email campaigns, campaign personalization, lead scoring, finance procurement, they get the smallest slice. And yet, if you want clear, measurable return on investments, the back office is where it lives. When you automate AP, like automation, you cut the cycle times and error rates. When you embed compliance checks and into workflows, you reduce audit costs and risks. Dashboards give decision makers visibility in real time, not something that happened last week. They can see as the invoices are coming in, as people are paid, they can see it on live, real time dashboards. So finance is the hidden or return of investment engine, but it is getting the smallest slice of investment. So I believe fundamentally, look, and not just finance, but also customer service as well, and where it can help, where it can make real impact. So sometimes I call, I suppose, finance the hidden ROI engine. It's not as glamorous as sales or marketing tech, but it's the function that can prove efficiency gains in weeks, not years. That's why the mismatch matters. Investment is chasing the hype, but the finance is where the value is. So remember that. Investment is chasing the hype, but finance is where the value is. So let's get practical. What does automation and finance actually look like? I have a list of length of my arm, but these are the kind of core ones that we see day in, day out, and that really kind of bring value to organizations. So just bringing this down to earth, what does automation really look like? It's not hype, it's AP approval processes running automatically. It's AR collection chasing themselves, not someone having to chase and ring and all that. They actually does it themselves. Automatic emails go out, etc. It's consolidations done in hours, not days. We see this a lot with clients, with multi-entity clients who want to do consolidations. And even some big organizations I work with still do them on spreadsheets. Again, there's that comfort factor there. I completely get that. But the technology has moved on. So spending 2 days on consolidation when you can press a button and it does it in 20 minutes makes no sense to me from a technical perspective. But again, I understand there's nuances and people like to collect their own work and etc. But the technology is there. There's full audit capability as well. So why don't you use it? And again, automation and finance, it's here already. It's in solutions that are out there. So like modern solutions like Sage's new Sage Intacct system addresses these and more. Reporting dashboards, drill down analytics, we've been promised these for years. They're there. Not only are they there, we work with systems now to automatically send out a board pack, a week before the board needs it. It sends out reports to, cash flow reports first thing Monday morning to all the different managers in the departments. So this is again removing mundane tasks and freeing up your people and yourselves to do more strategic leadership-based work. And really, when the finance teams do take this leap, here's what really happens. So I'm just going to give you 3 quick examples because I have 2 kind of case studies that I'll do shortly. A hospitality group we recently worked with used to take them 10 days to close their books with automations. Now 2. Not only that, we got their AP process down from, I think there was about 1,000 invoices a week that was taken 2.5 FTEs to do. We got that down to half a day a week through automation and the use of AI. Another example, sports organisation, they had no real-time dashboards. When we delivered them, the board's first reaction was, why have we never seen this before? And what became quite transparent, the guys knew their business inside out, but actually they were leaving a lot on the table in relation to revenue. So They had ticketing sales, they had events management, but they were missing gaps around certain things that were happening in the locality. And also, they had no real visibility on the margin for running these events. Yes, they had an idea how much was spent, but they had no real idea how much, taking into account all the people who worked on the different events, the third parties, outside parties as well, and which was actually cost them to run. And it was only then that they were able to hone in on specific events that actually made them money. A private equity firm we worked with needed a one consolidated reporting after a deal. We delivered it, and the CFO told me, I don't even recognize my role anymore. So these are the kind of the day-to-day changes that we're seeing out on the front line, as they would say. They're not unicorn studies, they're organization like yours, you know. So let me that reel into 2 case studies. So the Rapid Ratings is a fast scaling SaaS business. That's software as a service, kind of, you know. Finance were stuck in spreadsheets, chasing manual reconciliations, couldn't keep up with 50% annual growth. They were making money hand over fist, but the business couldn't catch up or be able to do it, and it was really stunting their growth. What they did was they used the technology to automate the contracts, their bidding, the revenue recognition, with a solution like Sage Intacct, and integrating Salesforce and Avalere. Avalere is like a tax management system. So these guys were based in the States, and with the States, you have a lot of complexities with, you know, state taxes, federal taxes, etc. So it's an awful pain. But anyway, this is a marketplace solution that does that for you. Anyway, they collapsed their processes from days to hours. They cut their close by 40%. They reduced their DSO by 20%, and crucially scaled the business without adding finance headcount. So the traditional model here would be throw more people at the problem to solve it. What these guys here took a step back, looked at the process, and looked at solutions that are out there from a finance perspective, and implemented them. This allowed them kind of get bigger wins across the business as well. But automation also gave the leadership visibility into the contract level data, letting them really accelerate their product roadmap and even cut churn. This was a key insight that we noticed, that they were able to see which features were being used, which features weren't being used. They were able to do value add sales then to existing customers in certain sectors that weren't using certain components that other people were in the same sector. So it allowed them to sell more. So that's really automation, not just saving time, but redefining finance's role from process bottlenecks to enabler of growth. So essentially, they sell 50% growth without adding a single finance headcount. So HR were delighted, no more people, no more problems. Finance were delighted, no going handout, looking for more money to hire people. And they still managed to do it, saving money. And in a completely different industry, the same pattern holds true. So Monster Cat, North America's largest independent electronic music label, had hit the wall with a solution they were using, Sage 300, and Excel, of course, good old Excel. Reporting was slow, consolidations were painful, and when COVID hit, their on-premise system held them back. And just about that, what they looked at was a few different solutions in the market, and this is a Sage Intacct case study, so I'm going to say that. What they did, they looked around automating reconciliations, consolidation, creating real-time dashboards, and they expanded the reporting capacity 3x without adding any headcount. So again, they took a pragmatic approach. They said they could have went down the people journey, get more people, more costs, etc. But they went down the technology route. But part of what they did as well was they actually looked at their existing processes and mapped them out and see where they fit for purpose, where the business is going. Again, a lot of this aligns back to the business's strategy, where it's doing from a service line perspective or a product line perspective, etc. And does the finance setup, does it fit into that world? And does it allow, more importantly, the information to be at fingertip level for the board to be able to make decisions? So the finance team boosted their efficiency by 30%, but more importantly, the department heads now had transparency into their own budgets and revenues, so they could see what was actually going on, rather than, again, being historians, they were navigators. That shift changes finance role from simply producing reports to empowering decisions across the business. So that's really redefining results and action. So rather than being the person to come up with a list of spreadsheets and here's where we are and what's happened, we can actually bring criticality to the numbers to the table, but also recommendations going forward as well. So there's finance team triple reporting output with the same 4 people. These stories really show us the journey, and here's what the journey looks like. So this is the finance maturity ladder. People see different ones all out there. This is the kind of one I work off. So we see digital workflows, automated close, real-time insights, strategic advisor. Most teams I meet are somewhere between step 2 and step 3. Very, very, very few make it to step 5. And where are you, honestly? Where are you, honestly, and where do you want to be on this? Most teams are stuck at 2 or 3, very few to level 5. And to climb the ladder, tomorrow's finance leaders need new skills. So, onto the skills. So, tomorrow's finance leaders won't be defined by reconciliations. They'll be defined by data storytelling, tech fluency, and strategy. Look, you've all heard this 1,000 times, but it's becoming faster and faster now with the advent of AI really putting a magnifying glass over everyone, not just finance, but across different departments within businesses. One CFI I know tells his team, your job isn't to produce numbers, it's to explain to me what they mean to non-finance people. That's storytelling. If bots crunch the data, us humans must deliver judgment, empathy, and leadership. So it's actually probably going back to the role we all dreamed about when we were leaving school or doing our leaving cert or our A levels, and what do we want to do when we went down the accountancy route, make a real difference and real change. So tomorrow's finance leader isn't a number cruncher, you're a storyteller, which I think is beautiful. I think the number crunching and stuff has a place, of course, and that's a core discipline. But I think technology is going to take a lot of that away insofar as it will do a lot for you. So it's back to that 50%. What are you going to do with the other 50% of your time? And it's really kind of raising your game around, tech fluency, understanding what's out there, strategy, storytelling, empathy, etc. And that raises a deeper question. Who are we really becoming now? Where do we sit today? We're facing a finance identity crisis. Well, I believe so. You can tell me different. On one end, the bookkeeper, on the other end, the strategic advisor and leader. So let's test the room. Where do you want to be in the next 3 years? Bookkeeper, analyst, strategist, advisor, leader. This is your chance to be honest with yourself. Are we accountants or are we advisors? Let's test the room. Where do you want your finance team to be? So I'm just going to throw up a little poll here. And then that poll will pop up in a second. And it's really around what role do you want you or your finance team in the next 3 years? So quick kind of pulse check. It gives me a good indication. There's a lot of people on the webinar today to see how it works. And kind of, asking yourself, I suppose, honestly, do you want to become more of a business partner or even a strategic advisor from your current role? Or you may be that already. So this is your ambition today, is your reality in 3 years' time. And then the shared results. So 50% strategic, 36% business partner, 11% compliance, and 3% transaction processor, which is all great. And it's great to see people leaning towards kind of business partner, strategic advisor, and because that's where I fundamentally believe the value add will be. Recently, my friend, he's a CFO, he was made redundant from an organization and is redefining how he works now. And he's attending the Institute of Directors chartered directorship course just to bring that insight and value from years of being a CFO to the board level. And I think that's fundamentally kind of where the whole finance area is kind of going from a role perspective. Okay. So redefining the finance roles. So alongside automation and outcomes, we also need to talk about how the role of finance itself is being redefined. Moving toward really clearly defined responsibilities, no more duplication, no more blurred lines. A proper approval process becomes part of daily life, not an afterthought. So this is the utopia, guys. The mundane tasks are reduced through automation, freeing time for strategic work, Finance professionals are expected to contribute more strategically, partnering with operations, influencing growth. And it's not just about finance working in isolation. We're seeing stronger collaboration across the business. This is essentially kind of grown-up businesses now where finance have a voice at the table and have an influence also, because you're sitting on the engine room of data that runs businesses and where businesses are making decisions from. So don't underestimate the power that you have. Finally, accountability is built into systems. Segregation of duties and audit trails aren't just compliance. They define who's what. So this isn't just about what task changes, it's about the very identity of the finance professional changing to meet the needs of modern organizations. I came off a call last week with a client in the UK, and we were looking at a project for them. And I was just checking in when they wanted to go live. Was it, the standard 1st of January next year? And they said they couldn't because they had the auditors in, and the auditors were going to take 4 months to do the audit, which I found kind of flabbergasting considering the technology that's out there. But they've come from that background in one of the big 4 companies. So I can see what has to be done. But I think clients are going to start looking for more and more faster outputs of what we all do, especially from an auditing perspective. I know the big 4 are already looking at this from using AI, etc. I think it has a place. Is it going to remove, everyone doing it? No, I think it should shorten the time, etc. But again, that's technology kind of disrupting where that whole business line. Now, automation removes the mundane so you can focus on the meaningful. And that's it. It's trying to get out of that kind of spreadsheet hell and VLOOKUPs and fucking sum ifs and all that kind of stuff. And actually feeling kind of at the end of the day when you finish, you've actually made a difference. I'm sure you do anyway. This is just a kind of a mind shift on how you look at things. But none of this works without controls, and that means governance by design, which I know is one of those things that I mentioned earlier on that's coming at people all the time. Oh, sorry. So here's the good news. Automation doesn't just make things faster, it makes them safer. Internal controls are baked in. Every approval has a workflow. Every click is logged. Segregation of duties is enforced by the system, not a policy document. In Sage Intacct, again, the system that I implement, every login and posting leaves a digital fingerprint. That's governance by design. So you don't have to worry about, when the audits come in, who changes. You have full kind of fingerprints all across your data from day one, and also who has access, etc. So controls really aren't policy PDFs anymore. Those standing operating procedures that you have or policy documents, they're actually built into systems. They're the code. So let me ask you, which of these control challenges hits closest to home for your to your team? Because every team is kind of slightly different and every sector is different as well. So I'm just going to do another quick poll. This one really around kind of weakness challenges and what control weakness challenges your team most. This is critical because governance is no longer a policing exercise. It's actually coded into the processes. So everyone's getting hit with this all the time. So Chris, you wouldn't throw up the poll there for a second? So you can see there, over 50% reliance on spreadsheets is the big control weakness. So people are saying manual approval bottlenecks next, and then weak audit trail and lack of segregation duties kind of thereabouts. So it's either infers that that's not an issue or it's already, you have it covered as well, which is fantastic to hear. Nice. Thank you guys for doing this. So why do finance transformation projects fail? So the audit is great and fantastic, and where do I start and what do I do, etc. Let's look at why they fail first of all. So people starting the journey, the best of intentions, they've outlined what their pain points are, what they want to do, etc. And then they fail. I think the stat is 35% of most software projects fail. They never go live. So why do finance transformation projects fail? It's not the software, it's us, people. Resistance to change, clinging to legacy systems, lack of skills. I always look at when I'm implementing a solution for clients, whatever, I look at who gains power and who loses power as part of this transformation. And it's very important to look at that from yourself as well, that these aren't IT projects. These are business transformation projects or finance transformation projects in this instance. So you look at the resistance and who's going to win, who's going to lose, because there's always going to be winners and losers. But essentially, it's for the betterment of the business. I've seen projects where perfect tech collapse because people refuse to let go of the old ways. So everything is done, built, but they refuse to use it. A lot of that is around change management and how training is done as well. So, but just to be kind of aware of them, So it's really around the technology is tried and tested. It's the people that fail it rather than technology. And if we don't lead the change, we risk being replaced by it. So we don't get ahead of this, we're going to be replaced by it. So, harsh truth, let me say this bluntly, technology isn't your competitor, it's your replacement if you ignore it. Look, the statement makes people very defensive. It should. That's the point. If you don't lead the change, you will be replaced by it. So this is, you know this anyway, guys. You know, you're all very smart individuals. You just need to embrace it. It's exhausting. I get that as well. I've been around for 20 odd years. I've seen the internet come. I've seen the .com. I've seen the Y2K. I've seen Brexit. I've seen everything at this stage. It's just part of the course, you know. If you don't lead the change, you're going to be replaced by it. And here are the common red flags I see time and time again. Why do projects fail? Again, when you're in the midst of them. 4 red flags kill transformation projects. Bad data. I can't underestimate how much bad data kills projects, because the responsibility is on you. We always use any implementations as an opportunity to do a spring clean. Cultural resistance. Some people just aren't up for taking on new things. So part of what I will always ask when I'm sitting down with new clients is, have they been part of an implementation or process redesign before? And that allows me then to kind of lead out the conversation in a certain way. And flip those around. They're your success factors also. You have clean data, all good. Culture engaged, brilliant. Finance led, brilliant. Quick win, celebrate it. Spot the red flags early is what I'll say to you, or pay for them later on. So you can ignore them. They will appear at some stage during an implementation journey or transformation journey. But when you get this right, finance stops being a cost center and becomes something really else entirely. So finance has always been seen as a cost center, but automation flips that. Real-time risk dashboards give clarity, scenario planning, guide strategy. When finance stops firefighting transactions, it becomes the engine room of growth. Think about that. When you stop getting your head out of the spreadsheets and the transactions and chasing every single thing and using technology and automation to do that for you, you become the engine room of growth. You become the proactive person at the table. So finance isn't an overhead; it's a growth engine, you know. And that shift delivers results like these. Let's be clear. It's not about faster close or fancier dashboards. It's really about redefining results across the organization. When you modernize finance, you get better decisions because leaders really trust and act on real-time data. Stronger governance, controls embedded, risk reduced, and you sleep better at night. Better customer experiences, invoicing, payments, responsiveness, all speed up. Employee satisfaction. This is a big one. We came across this a few times there in the last 6 months. And why people wanted to bring a new system. Yes, for the kind of the usual story around automation, etc., blah, blah, blah. But it was also around kind of attracting talent and retaining talent in the organization. People want the new systems. They don't want to be spending to 1 o'clock in the office the last Friday every month doing a month-end close. So employee satisfaction is a big one. So people aren't trapped in spreadsheets. They feel that their work matters. And all this results in greater efficiency, not just in finance, but also across the business. Let me add just 2 more that I have. Scalability. If you are a company launching a new country or double revenue, you don't need to double your finance headcount. The technology is there to allow you to scale quite aggressively. Cost optimization. Automation cuts audit fees, reduces fines, and saves rework costs. So again, the return on investment is there. You just have to know where you're spending it. These aren't just operational, they're strategic enablers. Again, they make finance the engine growth, not the bottleneck. So this is what modern finance really delivers: efficiency, transparency, and trust. So how do you start the journey, you know? So practical roadmap. Again, you've seen a lot of different ones. This is kind of my own one. You've tried and tested. But really, when we're talking to clients, we kind of ask them to take a step back. There's no point boiling the ocean. And you're kind of thinking, just like, this is fantastic, Connor. How do I do any of this? So by this point, you're probably saying, you know, where do I even begin? So here's a very simple 5-step roadmap that I see successful finance teams following. Map out your finance pain points. Don't hide away from them. You know what they are. It's either a long month-end close, not collecting fast enough, PO or workflow approvals or PO approvals are disjointed or not going to the proper process. Start with real frustrations, your close reporting, AP or budgeting cycles are saying, prioritize what can be automated. Not everything needs to change at once. Just focus on the quick wins that build momentum. Get people to listen to what you're trying to do, but don't try and boil the ocean. Pick one process, maybe AP approvals, and automate that. Show the results, show that it works. And then once you prove the value, extend that across more processes and entities. And this is going back to the J curve again. People going in head first into the new technology, trying to use it the best they can. And yeah, it will come up with some quick wins. But again, it won't change how the business is working. It needs to be mapped out properly. So once, as I was saying, once you prove the value, scale it, measure and communicate to track the time saved, errors reduced, cycle time improved. People want statistics. People want to know, okay, this is fantastic, Connor, you've done a great job, but I don't really know where the value is here. So all at the start, understand, try and collect the data that allows you to kind of sell the result in the end. So it's all about really a disciplined step-by-step approach. So start small, prove it works, then scale. So let me leave you with one final challenge. If 50% can be automated, of your work can be automated, what will you do with the other 50%? 50% of your work that you're currently doing now can be automated, maybe more in certain sectors. And with that, let's open up for any questions that you may have. So it's now 45. I'll give a few minutes for questions. So if there's any questions, I can take them here. Here's one question here for Shannon Neal. How would you recommend a currently very manual finance department to get ready for go live with a new ERP system implementing in November? Well, November is, September, you're nearly done. October, first of all, I would be looking at the timelines. I would essentially look at what have you actually mapped out from what you're trying to win in this final solution. So what needs are you addressing? So what are your pain points again, as I said? How will those pain points be fixed? Who is going to be owning the system going forward? Do you have a project manager on your side to help with the implementation, to help with the data gathering, to help with the governance of the project? And then what does success look like? You're asking yourself, what does success look like? Is success everything all singing, all dancing in November, all automated, all your manufacturing, sales, order process linking into your finance management system? Or is it a finance management and a manufacturing and sales ordering all in one? ERP kind of is a cover-all in our world, enterprise resource planning. Sometimes you can also incorporate CRM, incorporate HR as well. So if you want to drop me a line, Shannon, I'll happily discuss it with you and give you a few pointers, get you in the right direction. How would you recommend, this is the way forward for small charities who will need to employ an external resource to even map the pain points? What would be a ballpark budget? How long is a piece of string? First of all, you get 30 minutes of my time for free. There's no cost there whatsoever. I can point the right direction. There is templates there for charities that we would use that allows people to get up and running quicker than you would think. You mentioned that a company client use Alvalar as a tax compliance solution. And would a company need to be across several tax jurisdictions to get value for money? Typically, yeah. We work with clients and they might be over about 3 or 4 different states, big states like Texas and California. They have a lot of revenue going through. But if you're in one state, you could actually customize the tax thing yourself. I'm hearing a lot about talk about agentic AI bots and efficiencies it can bring. How would you go about introducing this, or what is really needed? Month-end reporting, sales reporting. Again, the data. Do you have the data to do this at the moment? Is the data clean? Is it in a siloed area? Who has access to that data? Once you've taken off that kind of checklist, then you're in a position then to look at what agents that you would use. And there's a lot of good agents out there. Also, you need to talk to your IT people. If you're part of a global template or a large organization, you can't just start willy-nilly start firing agents all over the place, because there's GDPR concerns as well, and obviously confidentiality concerns as well. But again, drop me a message and I'll happily talk to you around that. So we can just, if anyone has any more questions to throw in there, we might just call it a day. Oh, there's a message there. Assuming an openness to dropping legacy processes, how do you go about designing new ones to better match the capabilities of the technology solutions available? A change in mindset may be required. Yes, we would, in colloquial terms, spec and select, we would call it. So we'd actually, we'd map out, first of all, again, the pain points that you try to address, and then we would compare it against different solutions that are out in the marketplace. Part of that would be to demo those solutions then to yourselves as part of the process. And then it's up to yourselves to choose if you're a private company or if it's public sector, we will work with you then around the tender document or the RFP. So there's a few other ones here. I'll get back to all these anyway. Multi-entity, what are your thoughts on implementing cost of finance system, NetSuite, Sage, Intacct versus using QuickBooks Zero for accounting? Again, this is from Carl McNally. It really comes down to what the solutions can do. I know Sage Intacct, for argument's sake, can do multi-entity very easily, and it actually visually displays them out. And also you can use it in for consolidation, and it's pretty impressive when I see it. Again, for the other solutions, it's really around what they can do. I would get anyone that you're talking to demo the software first and to ask those hard questions and show me, rather than just talking about it, saying it does do it. And also look for customer testimonials and references as well from your solution providers. JP Johnny says marketing is hype, or is it not that it lacks integration with good financial planning? Too much S&M is seen as a cost rather than real value creation. Integration all the way, JP. I'm a big believer in this. And again, the technology solutions that you're looking at out there should have that open API capabilities. And open API basically means they can essentially talk to different systems that are out there. What software for not-for-profits using SORP? This is possibly becoming mandatory next year. So again, I do a lot of work. I've done, 20 plus NFPs in the UK and Ireland in the last year alone. UK are very ahead of this on the SORP perspective because they have to have it. We're seeing more of the larger NFPs in Ireland having it built into the reporting. So we have it as part of Sage Intacct. We have a not-for-profit instance of it that has the SORP reporting built into it. But yeah, I completely agree. It is becoming mandatory. It's like GDPR. Just get ahead of it, guys. Just go down the SORP route because it's going to come at you like a tsunami. Is this webinar a sales pitch? No, not by any means at all. This is a very informative webinar. I think I've mentioned Sage Intacct because I think they're sponsoring with this with Charles Arm. But again, part of these solutions, it really depends what the solution that you want. They all do slightly different things. JP Donnelly, could you tell us more about the dashboard for the sporting organisation? What kind of things it includes? Interesting enough, the sporting organisation was a Premier Football club in the UK. The biggest thing for them was that they had a 13-month reporting cycle, and the 13-month in professional football was around their bonuses. So that kind of slightly changed how things work. We linked into their ticketing system so they could see how ticketing sales were doing. They could forecast based on historic information how they would expect sales to do. They were looking at dynamic pricing, similar to what Ticketmaster did for the Oasis concert that broke everyone's heart. Part of that was looked at as well as an add-on going forward into the future. They also look at season ticket holders and the breakdown of the demographic information on that, where they actually push it to other areas. And they looked at seat sales in relation to the need to move a bigger stadium, a lot of different stuff. And then obviously there's big licensing connotations as well, some of the professional football clubs. So it was around the royalties as well and managing that. So there's a lot of stuff going on in those dashboards. Again, how the dashboards were built out was really around on the roles. The CFO would see one view of the world, the finance guys would see another view of the world, the board would see another view of the world. And so rather than confusing the messaging with that they actually cared about, they actually got very specific reporting. What beginner software would you recommend? Anonymous attendee. I would start with Excel. Get the basics in Excel right as an accountant, and then everything from that will be gravy. What are you seeing in the agentic AI space as regards finance departments? Very slow. There's a trust piece there around it. We do see it, Copilot being used across different businesses. So if you think of Alexa at home, now we're seeing businesses being able to ask their finance software, can you show me the top 5 suppliers where our margin is X? in North Leinster, for argument's sake, and it's able to give you the information there and then, and you can do deep dive in the day as well. So gone are the days when you have to run a few different reports to get that information. Hope that answers the question. Where you see data science being recruited in finance functions to help around predicting forecasting. In the large organization, yeah, big organizations, they already have a place. They're part of the data teams. And we see them coming in from an initial trial perspective to look at what information and what information silos, more importantly, are in the organization and how to get them all talking to each other. So there's one version of the truth and not different versions of the same thing. So they do have a place. Big in aircraft leasing, big in pharma. The technology is becoming so fast now that there is pressure on those guys in relation to predicting and forecasting, because there is solutions out there that you can buy off the shelf to help you do that you can integrate with your finance systems as well. So hope that answers that. Yeah, are the tools, one last question, then I'm going to wrap it up. Are the tools able to handle scenario modeling, or does part of the work still revert to spreadsheets? It depends on the different software you use. Some software has scenario modeling built into it. Again, I know you're all like, the minute you see the information, you're going to dump it into spreadsheets and then do your own scenario modeling. But what the software, the different softwares that are out there are able to do is run different scenarios. So if you think of those 4:30 calls on a Friday afternoon when you're just about to head out the door and it's not a month end, and the boss says, we're thinking about doing this, could you check what that would look like? That's where that comes into place. Or when you're forecasting for next year, or again, aligning to your business strategy allows you kind of best to. But again, a lot of systems have it built in, and use your extra modules that you would add on. But hope that answers there. Okay, I think that'll wrap it up. I'll come back to any questions that I haven't answered separately. We'll include in the pack that goes out. I thank you all for listening today. I know it's not the most exciting thing in the world for you, because you're all busy people with real life issues to resolve and solve, and I'm just kind of dip in and out into this world. And I hope I have helped in somewhat kind of demystify where this is kind of going. Feel free to link in with me, book time with me, etc. It's not going to cost anything. I'll happily kind of talk to anyone. I love chatting to people and learning new businesses and what makes you all tick. And if I don't know it, there's definitely people in my organization that can help you as well. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you all soon. Thank you very much.